Welcome back to With or Without Sugar. Today we're at the Ananda Club in Sandton, Johannesburg. We're talking about a very little understood component of brands, and that is the personal brand. People in business, politicians, leaders need to think about how they are being projected and what messages are coming across in the media. Managing that is vitally important. Today we're chatting to Dick Foxton. He's leader of specialist tactical and strategic communicating company called Foxton Communicating. Come and have a glass of wine with us. Hello, Dick. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us on With or Without Sugar. Dick, brilliant to have you on With or Without Sugar, and we're here to talk about something that people really don't think hard enough about, which is personal brand projection. A glass of wine are very important.
Wonderful. You're very good health.
And your good health too.
Cheers.
So, you and I are doing something interesting. Happy socks. It's an interesting recent development that this Happy Socks brand has come to the fore and has given people an opportunity to express themselves a little uniquely through a very subtle means. But you've been wearing Happy Socks for many, many years, and it's part of your personal brand expression. It's who you are, your personal identity, isn't it?
Sort of.
How did you come to adopt it? Tell us that.
I was wandering down Jermyn Street in London one day. That's one place. And I saw this immaculately suited city gent, bowler hat, pinstripe suit, shirt, club tie, and I noticed this flash of red. And I thought, the most boring part of men's apparel has to be socks. Look at that. And I walked straight into Hilditch and Quay, and I bought 6 pairs of brightly coloured socks, and I've never worn anything else since.
What you do is you consult with people about the right kind of projection of image and manage of image and message into the environment, be that media, be it in the public in a variety of forms. And often that's to do with subtlety, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's less to do with branding so much as advising CEOs of some fairly major corporations, and I say that very humbly, on strategic and tactical communications from the CEO's standpoint in political and current affairs, rather than public affairs or public relations. Other people do all of that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, how people's reputations are formed are only based, nobody can tell you any different, on 3 spheres of influence. How you're seen, in no particular order, by the political leadership of the country, not just government, political leadership. How you're seen by your peers in the big business, in the business leadership, because business leaders talk to each other about you and everybody else, formally and informally. And how you're seen in no particular strict fashion by media, but at editor level. That's where you rule out the public relations stuff.
And of course, what it is in the same realm as what we would do for a brand, which is to say we want the market out there to have certain ideas about us that will attract them to us. So if you're a consumer brand selling products, you want ordinary consumers on the street to believe and think and feel things about you that are positive and attractive, so they come towards you. So in the political sphere, the game isn't really much different to that, is it? You want people to feel positively towards you and understand the message that you want to get across.
The political space, particularly in South Africa, impacts on everybody's lives on a daily basis. And that's not going to get any less. It's going to get more effective, not necessarily through legislation, but through the way it affects our lives through the media, through social media now.
is you no doubt will fundamentally agree with the sentiments. In fact, at the first With or Without Sugar episode we ever did, which was with Malcolm Russell, and Malcolm's whole point in his Face the Media program is, or one of the strongest points, is about owning the message and managing the message, not allowing the message to be owned or managed outside of your control, whether it be in the media or the public environment. And presumably that's very central to your communication principle. Make sure you're managing the message.
Absolutely. You see, that's to do with involuntary publicity. In other words, things that you can't plan for, things that happen spontaneously. Things like crisis communications coming. You cannot foresee, for the most extreme, a political assassination, for example.
Yeah.
But I mean, or any other crisis of that sort.
But would you tend to agree with me that there are far too few people of prominence thinking proactively about that and having a strategy for
You're quite right. There are too few. The fact of the matter is that, particularly in a commodities-based economy like the mining industry, where crises happen all of the time for all sorts of reasons, people need to understand, and CEOs in particular, that they cannot continue to be reclusive in the sense that, first of all, they've got shareholders to account to, but secondly, when it comes to crises, like happening in mining, in every industry, they've got to be available.
Yeah.
They can't be anonymous. That's the kiss of death.
Yeah, exactly. I can think of a classic example that I was involved in some years ago with a certain global petrochemical organization that had a series of unfortunate incidents at the facilities that turned out to be fires were incorrectly reported as explosions, causing all sorts of negative publicity and personal brand. But one of the most difficult things the brand faced was the unavailability of the leadership of the brand in the media to talk about it. And that would go to the point that you're making.
Precisely. I mean, after this discussion, I have a meeting with the CEO of Ford, who is in exactly that situation. He's suffering the crisis of burning motor cars.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the messaging becomes crucial. It's not just because of the Cougar brand, but the future of the entire Ford Motor Corporation in this country. Because the Cougar brand and messaging not properly managed, nobody will touch a Ford, no matter whether it's a Cougar, SUV, whatever.
Yeah.
So they face departure from this country, disinvestment, if you like, as a result of how they message and don't message in a crucial crisis sense.
What was it, 2-3 weeks ago, they took a full-page advertisement in the Sunday Times with a personal message from the CEO, which was designed to say, we know, we care, we're thinking about it, we're doing things about it, expect to hear from us soon. That was sort of a hierarchy of messaging that you got out of that. Presumably that's the sort of thing you were advising them to steps to take.
Yes, at the time I did not advise the CEO to do it via full-page ads because I tend to think that full-page ads tend to question your credibility. They're paying to be heard with what they want to say.
Hypothetical question. If you were the advisor to Donald Trump right now, what would be the key piece of advice you'd be giving him?
I would say to him, allow yourself to be impeached now.
So now, put yourself, if you can, to the other side of the equation. He's paying you $1 billion to say, make me look the best I can whilst I'm in office. What would you be telling him to do differently in order to create positive perception than he's doing right?
First of all, I wouldn't take on an assignment like that because I cannot conceive of ever adding $1 billion worth of value to anything. It's outrageous. I mean, we have a very good example right now here in this country with the Gupta organization. If I had Bell Pottinger, Lord Bell is a personal friend, at a huge amount of dollar-denominated fees to, in my view, whitewash a very difficult, unwhitewashable set of circumstances.
Yeah.
It's a value-add proposition. I charge my fees according to the belief that the value-add thing has to be to do with adding 10 rands of value to every 1 rand that I charge, if I can possibly do that.
Reputation-wise, obviously I'm not going to ask you about Donald Trump's reputation. I think we all know where you stand on that. Of the political leaders around the world, who do you say has the most positive and powerful reputation?
I thought Barack Obama had an impeccable, whatever his critics, that look at his immediate successor and the change of status, standing, reputation, the whole gravitas factor.
Interestingly enough, what I've noticed about Herman Mashaba since he took over as Joburg mayor, he's always been a strong communicator, but he's really taken up the active communication principles of Twitter, Facebook, social media. One wonders whether he has borrowed that from Barack Obama's lead. He's a daily communicator of principles, ideas, responses to issues. Presumably, these are the sorts of things that you're advising your.
Shaba's an interesting man. I've known him for some time, but more as a business leader than an elected, servant of the people. And it's important, more so than the presidency or any of those things, in the mayor's situation, because that's the townsfolk that are your spheres of it. That's where that's what you've got to reach. And I think Herman, bless him, didn't get that immediately to start with, because without me having any political party affiliations at all, Parks Tau, technically as a mayor, was a very, very good mayor indeed. And you could see that he'd done that kind of thing for a while. Yes. Herman Mashaba had to readjust almost to that thing, but that whole position. But his use of social media, particularly, very effective.
One of my favourite statements I've ever heard made was, your brand is what people say about you when you've left the room.
I think what they say about you when you've left the room can only be summed up by saying, if I had my 36th anniversary yesterday of being on my little own one-man mission, enough people have been kind enough when I've left the room than haven't been kind, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. So Dick, thank you for the wonderful insights that you've given us in this chat. It's been fantastic engaging with you here in this fantastic setting. We'll see you soon. We'll see you next time on With or Without Sugar. Cheers.